Hi guys, welcome to Sudeep Was, and I hope each and every one of you are doing really good. And this is Decode Mains 2025, where you and I are going to be writing answers together to all the mains papers of UPSC Mains 2025. In this video, we're going to understand about the international relations section of the GS2 paper. So we are going to write the answers for the international relations section of the GS2 paper of UPSC Mains 2025, and I hope you're ready to write along with me. It is very important for you not only to just watch the video but write the answers along with me, because one, international relations is a very dynamic section and you'll understand how exactly you have to prepare for the upcoming Mains 2026, and for that you have to write with me. The second thing is there is a language in which you have to write the answers for international relations, and you will understand what language it is and how to bring that language if you write answers with me. Thirdly, it is important that you write answers with me because only then you will understand this unique approach that is called keyword approach, and this approach is very important if you have to deal with dynamic sections like international relations to get good marks. So please make sure that you write with me to understand that approach called keyword approach. And fourthly, it is very important that you complete the video in full, because only then you will understand how to prepare notes for international relations, how to follow the current affairs to get good marks in international relations, and more importantly to understand the thematics on which the questions are asked every year on international relations. One last thing I want to bring to all of your notice is we have put in a lot of efforts to get this program up and running. We are not delaying the release of video. It is delayed by design because we are waiting for the previous video to at least reach 1000 views and 100 likes, because that is the least amount of respect that we can expect for the artwork that we have put. And in the previous Decode Mains 2025 videos of ethics, polity, social justice, these videos have the highest view duration, which means the students are actually watching these videos for 2 or 3 hours and they are making use of it. But the only request to those students is please make sure that you share it as much as possible, because it at least reaches 1000 views and 100 likes, because that is the minimum standard that we have set for ourselves to release the next video. So please cooperate, and we would like your support and your love to continuously be there on Sudeep Was as well as Decode Mains 2025. Alright guys, now let us get on with the international relations, which is considered the most dynamic section, and here we are going to teach you how to deal with such dynamic sections. So I hope you are ready, I hope you have the pen and paper with you, and I hope you are going to write everything that we are going to discuss in this video. If that is the case, let us go on with the video. Enjoy the video guys. Hi guys, welcome to Decode Mains 2025, and thank you so much for such a warm response across the internet for this program. This was a unique program that I thought that I have to bring forward to all my aspirants, so that everyone across the country will understand how to approach the main syllabus, how to approach the questions, and how to write that paper specific and section specific language. And I'm really thankful for such a warm response. My gratitude to all my students who have written all the answers along with me and who have taken the patience to message me and congratulate me on this particular program. Thank you so much. Such innovative programs will be coming from Sudeep Was, this I can promise. But however, thank you so much for such a warm response. Okay, now in this video, as we have always done within the tradition of Decode Mains 2025, we are going to discuss about international relations. International relations is a section within GS2 paper of the UPSC Mains. Now within this GS2 paper, international relations is important because if you take international relations, first to understand the weightage of international relations in GS2 paper, you should understand that 4 questions will be asked from international relations, and those 4 questions will be question 9 and question 10, question 19 and question 20. So these are the overall 4 questions that will be asked. Now, as you know, it is 2 into 10 marks and 2 into 15 marks. So overall, from international relations, you'll be getting 50 marks. Okay. Again, it is not tricky. It is actually very scoring. Now, many people fear international relations because they feel that international relations is very dynamic. So how do I prepare? How do I prepare for international relations? That is a huge lacuna, or that is a huge doubt or fear in many of the students preparing for mains exam. That is why Decode Mains is very important. You learn that in every section, we have understood the weightage, we have understood the changing trends, we have understood how to prepare for that section, and then we have understood how to write the keywords and how to write the language for that particular section. So even in international relations, look at this video completely, you will understand how to prepare for international relations and how to write the better answer that you score very well in this section of GS2 Mains. Alright, now you understood the weightage of international relations, that is 4 questions, 50 marks. Now, before I jump to how to prepare for international relations, let us just read out the 4 questions that has appeared in this year UPSC Mains 2025. So that once we read out the 4 questions, we will understand what is the mindset of UPSC, what is UPSC thinking, so how should you prepare if you're preparing for the next year UPSC Mains 2026. Once we understand the changing trends, then we will try to create a framework how to prepare for international relations. After we prepare the framework, then we will go into individual questions, understand the demand, create a schematic or a structure of how to write the answer. Then we will write the answer together, and that is how we will learn how to bring the keywords and language for international relations. However, I always say international relations is something that will always be interesting because it will always be challenging. Okay, challenging does not mean the questions will be difficult. Challenging means they can ask you anything in international relations, from energy security to climate change to geopolitics. So that is why it becomes challenging, but that challenge itself is interesting provided that you know how to approach the questions, and for that make sure that you watch till the end of the video. Alright guys, now let us jump to the questions that was asked in this year's UPSC Mains 2025. As you can see on the screen, there are 4 questions that was asked: 9, 10, 19 and 20. As I told you, 2 10 markers and 2 15 markers. Okay, now look at this. Let me just read out the questions. India and Africa digital partnership is achieving mutual respect, co-development and long-term institutional partnership. Elaborate. Okay, now again, it is not surprising that they have asked India and Africa. It was actually expected. Alright, it was expected from many years that they have asked India and Africa now. Usually one question will always come on bilateral relations. Though Africa is a continent with many countries, we can consider that India-Africa more or less is a bilateral relations. Because when we do relation with any country of Africa, it is more or less like the entire African continent, we take it as one. So we can consider that this question comes under bilateral relations because there was a lot of interactions that was happening between India and Africa in the last 1 year. It was an expected question, so people would have done a good job. Many students of mine have done a good job with this. Okay, let us go to the next one now. The next one is: with the waning of globalization, the post-Cold War world is becoming a site of sovereign nationalism. Elucidate. Basically here, sovereign nationalism. See, nationalism which is sovereign than anything else. That is what it means is, if you prioritize national interest, and economic protectionism over globalization, then automatically that means what is the meaning of sovereign nationalism. Okay, however, again this question was pretty straightforward. It was not that it is surprising, because if you see the world from the last 2-3 years, there has been a lot of sovereign nationalism. If you see, Brexit came out long back, so that is where it actually started. Okay, from Brexit, if you look today, you have Make America Great Again. This is a campaign that is again inward looking rather than globalization. If you look at China has started something called Dream China. So that is again inward looking. The next is, if you take India as Atmanirbhar Bharat. So if you take all this scenario, you know that globalization is taking a back seat. Sovereign nationalism, where national interests are prioritized, that is taking a front seat. So taking all this into consideration, this was again an expected question, and I would consider both 9 and 10 as questions that you would have prepared, questions that you would have practiced if you have written a lot of mock tests. A lot of mock tests of a lot of institutes more or less covered these lines. Okay, next, coming to the 19th question. The 19th question is a little tricky. It is not difficult. Okay, energy security. They're only asking how will you integrate. They're asking how will you integrate energy security into foreign policy. Okay, energy security in foreign policy with regards to West Asia. So this is all they're trying to tell. Okay, energy security into foreign policy with regards to West Asia. So overall, if you can simplify that question, you'll be able to write the answer. In a few minutes, I will teach you how to write the very good answer in international relations. But let me first read out the question. Look at this. Energy security constitutes the dominant kingpin of India's foreign policy and is linked with India's overarching influence in Middle Eastern countries. Middle East is nothing but West Asia. Okay. Now, how would you integrate energy security within India's foreign policy in the coming years? Okay. So overall, the question is asking energy security within the foreign policy. How is it going to be integrated in the coming years? So basically, you have to talk in different angles. This is where you have to think laterally in the realm of international affairs. Strategic reasons, technological reasons, maritime reasons, energy corridor reasons, energy diversification reasons. These are some things that you have to think about. We will come to that in a few minutes. But overall, it seems to be very interesting. That's what I told. That is why international relations is interesting. Why? Because it is challenging. Many students will feel that, oh my god, how to write this answer, but it is not true. It is pretty straightforward. You would have practiced this, or I will tell you the methodology where you can actually write a very good answer with this. Okay, so stay with me. So this is the 19th one. Let us go to the next one. That is 20th question. The 20th question is, the reform process in the United Nations remains unresolved because of the delicate imbalance of East and West and entanglement of the USA-Russo-Chinese alliance. Examine and critically evaluate the East-West policy confrontation in this regard. Basically, if there is an issue in the United Nations or a reform in the United Nations that is still unresolved because of the East-West unbalance, they are talking about UNSC reforms. Okay, why is UNSC reforms reached a stalemate? What are the reasons? What can be done? This is what you have to talk in the context of East-West misalignment, as well as USA on one side and Russo-Chinese alliance on the other. This is what you have to talk. Okay, so whatever you have practiced on why UNSC reforms have been stalled for so many years, you have to just put East and West imbalance there, and you should also put the USA on one side and Russo-China alliance on the other side. If you can balance that, you can write a very good answer. Again, it is not a surprising question. The only thing is they have made it more interesting. That's why I told you international relations is interesting. Why? Because you get such challenges, and such challenges is what makes international relations answer very dynamic and very interesting to write. Alright, now that is why I'm telling you, learn how to approach international relations by looking at the class, and when I start the model answers, write with me so that you realize how to bring the context to this particular answers when they add that extra bit here and there, how to get that extra bit and make that answer suitable to that context that is being asked. Alright guys, now we have just gone through these questions. Now let us go into how to prepare for international relations. Okay, in international relations broadly, these are the themes. You have to prepare on these themes. Look at this, I'm going to tell you the themes. The first is bilateral relations. The first is bilateral relations. The second is regional grouping. Regional groupings. The third is India and its neighborhood. India and its neighborhood. See, India and its neighborhood can come within bilateral relations only, but I am putting it separately because if you take last 2 years, apart from the last 2 years, if you go back, always there will be one question on India and its neighbor. Either India, Sri Lanka or India, Bangladesh, they keep asking one question on India and its neighbor. So I have to prepare it separately. That's why I'm putting that as a separate thematic. Okay. So third one is India and its neighborhood. The fourth one is geopolitical grouping. Geopolitical grouping. The fifth one is India and its broader role. India and its broader role in contemporary geopolitics. Contemporary geopolitics. Okay, the sixth one is Indian diaspora. Indian diaspora. The seventh one is United Nations. United Nations and its associated organizations. And its associated organizations. Now look at this. There will always be one question asked within these themes. Okay, when I take bilateral relations, they have asked India and Africa relations this time, but next year they can ask you India-UK relations, or they can ask you India-USA relations. Okay, so like that, because India-UK is in news, the free trade agreement, hence India-UK can come next year, or India-USA because of the tariff, because of the protectionism that's happening in America, how does it impact the trade of India? On that lines also, India and USA relationship has become very important. So what I'm trying to tell is, see, all the 7 are dynamic thematics. All the 7 are dynamic thematics. Now, when I say dynamic thematics, it means if you take these thematics, you should keep following what is happening with India in the context of these themes. That is, with respect to bilateral relations, what is happening? Which country is India most closely interacting with? So that is what is bilateral relations. The next, when I say regional groupings, for example, BRICS. BRICS is a lot in news. It has always been in news. So again, there are very high chances that BRICS can come. So whichever regional grouping is in news, for example, SAARC may be in news. Or for example, Mekong Ganga cooperation may be in news. Or for example, BIMSTEC, even that was in news. So BIMSTEC is in news. So whichever regional grouping is happening or whichever regional grouping is in news, you should be completely tracking it, provided India has some role to play in it. Okay. The next, India and its neighborhood. Okay. Now, what is happening in Nepal and how does it impact India? What is happening in Myanmar? How does it impact India? What is happening or what happened in Bangladesh? How does it impact India? These are some things that you should have made a note of. Next, coming to geopolitical grouping. Geopolitical grouping means basically Quad, I2, U2, or you can take AUKUS, Okay, AUKUS is relatively not that important, but there was a question that was asked. So geopolitical grouping is very, very important. Okay, the next is India and its broader role in contemporary geopolitics. For example, if you remember, they've asked India's role in climate change. They've asked this question in international relations. India's role in climate change. Next, they had asked, in one of the years, they had asked India and its role in supply chain resilience. Supply chain resilience. This was also one question that was asked. Because China is becoming very dominant, there is supply chain vulnerability amongst the nation practicing globalization. How can India act as an alternative supply chain for improving the resilience? This was one of the questions that was asked. Okay. Next, if you take Indian diaspora, again in the last 2 years the question may have not come, but if you take the previous years, apart from the last 2 years, many questions have come on Indian diaspora. One, they have asked question on Indian diaspora in Southeast Asia. One, they have asked question on Indian diaspora in America also, or Western nations. So that is the question that they have keep asking. The next, get this, one question will always be every year. I'm again telling you, every year there will be one question on United Nations or some of its associated organizations. For example, there was a question on WTO. There was a question on IMO. This year there's direct question on UNSC. Look at this. Every year there will be one question on United Nations or its associated organizations. Now look, when I'm given you the theme, all you have to do is you have to prepare some static notes, and then you have to keep tracking what is happening in the arena of international relations in the context of this thematics. That is all you have to do. So I hope you understood how to go about preparing for international relations. Now you got to know how to prepare for international relations. The second is how to write effective answers. How to write effective answers in international relations. Okay, this is a valid question. Now, if you have to write effective answers in international relations, obviously the international relations is very dynamic in nature. So, irrespective of how much you prepare or how much notes you have done, how much you have tracked the thematics, whatever happens, the questions will be a little interesting because they are going to twist it and ask. So, if you want to write good answer, one, you should have made a good notes of all the thematics that I have told you. The second is you should have practiced answer writing in international relations using what you call as keywords approach. I keep telling you about this keywords approach. I have told you time and again in this entire Decode Mains 2025 program that keywords approach are important for 5 important sections. 4 sections and 1 paper. Those 5 sections are: 1. Geography. Keywords will create the geographical language. 2nd, society. Societal keywords will create that societal angles. The 3rd is social justice and governance. There, using the keywords will make the answer more on the lines of justice, equity, inclusivity, all these aspects. The 4th is this, the international relations. Using the keywords of international relations will give that language for international affairs. And the 5th, where the keyword approach becomes very, very important, I have told you again, is ethics. Okay, so overall, using the keywords approach in these 4 sections and 1 paper is very, very important, and this is the skill you should learn. And by looking at all the other videos, I am assuming that you people have already learned how to use the keywords approach in ethics, social justice and governance, society and geography. So today, I am going to teach you how to use this keywords approach in international relations. Okay, now I will take the 4 questions and apply the keywords approach. Look how easy the question becomes for me to answer. If I take the first question, that is question number 9. Question number 9 is asking about India-Africa partnership. India-Africa digital partnership. Okay, now in this India-Africa digital partnership, they have themselves given 3 keywords. So we have to play around with those keywords only. They themselves have given mutual trust. The next is co-development. And the 3rd is long-term institutional partnership. Long-term institutional partnership. Okay, so these are the 3 keywords which you have to play around with. They have only given this, so there is nothing that you have to make up. You just have to elaborate on this and go. Okay, this we will do when we are discussing the model answers. The second question, question number 10. Okay, that is they're asking, why is there a retreat of globalization? Why is there a retreat of globalization? This is one part. The second part, they're trying to ask that why is there a rise of sovereign nationalism? Why is there a rise of sovereign nationalism? Look at this. First, retreat of globalization. Let us say I will tell 4 keywords. The first keyword is economic decoupling. Economic decoupling. The second is supply chain nationalism. And the 3rd is rise of economic protectionism. Economic protectionism. So this is why there is retreat of globalization. So this is one part. See, I've used the three keywords to write the answer. Now coming to sovereign nationalism. Why is there a rise of sovereign nationalism? I'll again use 4 or 5 keywords. For example, the first one is geopolitical nationalism. The second one is economic nationalism. The third one is political nationalism. The fourth one is cultural nationalism. Okay. The fifth one is distrust. Distrust on multilateralism. Multilateralism. Look at this. By using these keywords, I'll be able to elaborate the answer. So whenever I see the context, I'll be able to recollect 4 or 5 keywords that I've already practiced. I'll use the keywords and frame the answer on the basis of the demand of the question. So this is how, look at this, the entire 10th question I can answer by using the language of international relations by using the keywords. So this is what is keywords approach. Let us take question number 19. 19th question is asking you, how will you integrate energy security? How will you integrate energy security with foreign policy? How will you integrate energy security with foreign policy? Now look at this here also. I can use so many keywords that I have already have in my inventory. Look at this. The first is energy diversification. Energy diversification. The second is oil diplomacy. Oil diplomacy. The third is energy corridors. Energy corridors. For example, it can be IMEC, it can be Chabahar port. All these are energy corridors. The next one is green energy. Green energy. The next is maritime security. Maritime security. The next is technological linkages. The next is supply chain security. The next is refinery partnership. Refinery partnership. The next is strategic leverage. Strategic leverage. Okay. Now see, these are all not keywords that I'm generating spontaneously because I'm very clever. Nothing like that. I have already created these keywords predicting that there will be some question on energy security of India because it was in news. There was a lot of noise about energy security. Correct? Energy security has always influenced foreign policy in India. So it is something that you should have practiced, and when you're practicing, you should have made a note of all the keywords and kept. So irrespective of what they ask, let them ask energy security with respect to West Asia, let them ask energy security with respect to Russia, let them ask energy security with respect to USA. You should always use these keywords to just change the English or the elaboration that you're going to do to suit the context of the question that is being asked. This is exactly what is known as the keywords approach. And I hope now you have learned what is the keywords approach, and I hope that you will start collecting the keywords as and when you keep writing more and more answers, and you will keep using those keywords again and again when you are writing new answers. Okay, so you understood how exactly to prepare for international relations, and you also understood how to write better answers for international relations. You also understood the weightage of international relations in GS2 paper. Now we have done the analysis, so I hope the analysis was helpful. Now let us go into the individual question and start writing the model answers so we understand how to bring the language of international relations in this particular section to get maximum marks. Alright guys, now let us start off with the question. The first question you will be seeing is question number 9. That is, let me read out the question first. India-Africa Digital Partnership is achieving mutual respect, co-development and long-term institutional partnership. Elaborate. Okay, so let us create the schema. So in the schema, first you are going to write the introduction. So in the introduction I will talk about India-Africa relationship, how this relationship has tied both the continents, how these two regions have always been together in anti-colonial struggle, in let us say South-South cooperation, or as a voice for global South. Okay, so that is how I will try to introduce, and I will also touch upon how in the recent 21st century, how our relationship has resulted in digital revolution. This is also something that I have to talk about. Okay, because the question is mainly talking about digital partnership, you have to add that point there. So this will be the introduction. Okay, the next is body. So in the body, as you know, they have already given the 3 dimensions that you will be covering. One is mutual respect, another is co-development, and the third is the long-term institutional partnership. The long-term institutional partnership. Okay, in the conclusion, we will try to link India and Africa in the broader vision of global geopolitics. Broader vision of global geopolitics. So it will be a forward-looking type of a conclusion. So this is more or less the structure that I'll be doing for this answer. Again, a straightforward one if you have practiced a lot of mock tests. Alright, so let us start off. Let us start off with the introduction. So in the introduction, you can give India, Africa, share a historical relationship, rooted in anti-colonial struggle, South cooperation, and developmental partnership. Okay, next point. In the 21st century, this bond has taken a new turn in the form of digital revolution. Okay, now I also have an example to give here to substantiate the digital revolution happening between India and Africa. You can write the next paragraph. India, Africa Partnership Conclave 2023, put a comma, African leaders praised India's digital public infrastructure as a model that could help the African continent overcome the digital divide. Okay, so this is how you write the introduction. All right, now coming to the body, try to write this India-Africa digital partnership in achieving mutual respect. Okay, so here you can say India-Africa digital partnership, put an hyphen, mutual respect. Okay, so here you can elaborate the first one. You can tell, unlike Western aid models, India has positioned itself as a partner. And not a donor in the journey of African development. Okay, next point you can write the Pan Africa e-network 2009 and its successor e-Vidya Bharati and e-Arogya Bharati. These are both tele-education and this is telemedicine. Okay, so e-Vidya Bharati and e-Arogya Bharati have provided digital services to over 22 countries in Africa. Okay, so this is India-Africa partnership with respect to mutual respect. We are not donors, we are partners in development. That is the mutual respect. Okay, the second one, give the subheading as India-Africa digital partnership in, put an hyphen and write, co-development. So here elaborate telling Indian digital models such as digital payment system, comma, Aadhaar identification system, and COVID vaccination platform is shared is shared with African countries to improve their delivery of service, to improve their delivery of services, to improve delivery of services in Africa, delivery of services in Africa. Okay, second paragraph you can say India has also trained several African professionals on digital skills under international technological and economic cooperation. Okay, so this is called ITEC. Now look at this. This ITEC is something that is done in all the South nations by India. It is done in Brazil, it is done in African countries, it is done in other neighboring countries of India. So it is not like it is done only in Africa. So that is why in international relations, one thing will be repeatable in across different thematics. You should just be writing a lot of answers. You will understand that ITEC is a point that I can write anywhere. India is training professionals of those countries under the program called ITEC. That ITEC is a common thing. So that wisdom will come with a lot of writing. Okay. So this is the second aspect, that is the co-development. The third one is India-Africa digital partnership. Give an hyphen and write institutional partnership. Okay. Here you can elaborate India, AU, African Union, digital partnership framework 2015 as institutionalized digital cooperation between these two regions. Okay. Second point you can write India and several countries of Africa have institutionalized cyber security cooperation in the domains of cyber threats, data protection, and e-governance. Okay, so this is how we have taken the three keywords and elaborated those three keywords. Okay, now let us conclude it in a forward-looking way. So in the conclusion you can say India played an important role in the permanent membership of African Union into G20 during its 2023 presidency. This reflects India's commitment. Towards South-South cooperation and mutual respect for Africa, which is embedded in the larger vision of global equity. Okay, so this is how you can conclude in a forward-looking manner. So I hope you understood how to elaborate the answer using the keywords that are there in the question. So let us move on to the next question, question number 10. Alright, now let us look at the 10th question. Let me first read it out. Okay, the 10th question is, with the waning of globalization, that is the retreat of globalization, the post-Cold War world is becoming a site of sovereign nationalism. Elucidate. Okay, let us create a schematic first. The schema is, in the introduction I'll talk about what is sovereign nationalism, okay, and why is it happening. I'll just give a glimpse. Okay, I'll not talk all the points because you'll be using that in the body. Just give a glimpse. Okay, so this is what I'll be writing in the introduction. In the body, I will take two parts. The first one is why is there a retreat of globalization? Why is there a retreat of globalization? And in the second point, I'll talk about why is there rise of sovereign nationalism? Why is there a rise of sovereign nationalism? So this is how I'll talk. In the conclusion also I'll talk two parts. India. Okay, I'll talk about India also. In this waning globalization, I'll talk about India, and I will give a forward-looking conclusion how countries like India have to balance. How the countries have to balance their national interest with globalization. So this is how the schematic of this answer is going to be. Alright, so let us start off. So in the introduction, you can write introduction. Sovereign nationalism means prioritizing national interest, economic protectionism and cultural unity over global integration. Okay, so this is what is known as sovereign nationalism. Next, let us address why. Post Cold War world, several events such as 2008 global economic crisis or financial crisis, global financial crisis. Next one, COVID-19 pandemic, the Ukraine war and intensifying USA-China rivalry has revived the concept of sovereign nationalism. Okay, so this is where I finish my introduction. Now let us go to the second part, that is the body. Within the body you can give the heading as retreat of globalization. Here you can say the first one, economic decoupling. Elaborate this point. Here you can say World Bank in 2023 notes that there is a declining trend of cross-border trade and capital flows relative to global GDP. Okay, second keyword is economic protectionism. Here you can elaborate by telling that WTO estimates that there is a surge in tariff and non-tariff barriers. For example, USA's America First trade as well as European Union's green tariffs illustrate this shift. Okay, the third one is supply chain nationalism. Here you can elaborate by telling the pandemic exposed vulnerabilities in global value chain, leading to reshoring and friendshoring. Example, semiconductor nationalism. Semiconductor nationalism. Look at this, how I'm bringing different keywords to make the answer seem the language of international relations. Learn from it, and I hope you are writing with me. Okay, so this completes the first part. Why is there a retreat of globalization? Let us go to the second part. The second part is the rise of sovereign nationalism. The rise of sovereign nationalism. Okay, first one. The first is economic nationalism. Economic nationalism. So here you can elaborate by saying the Western nations are diversifying away from China in the form of deglobalization. Okay, for example, European Union's carbon border adjustment mechanism. Okay, this is the first one. The second one, geopolitical fragmentation. Look at this. The Russia-Ukraine war has disrupted food and energy chains around the world. Creating two blocks. One is the USA led West, and the second is Russia-China axis. Okay, Russia-China axis. Okay, so this is the second point. The third is very interesting. Look at this. The third is digital nationalism. Look at this. You can say nations are asserting more and more control over data. For example, European Union's GDPR, China's Great Firewall, and India's Digital Personal Data Protection Act. Okay. The fourth one is cultural nationalism. So here you can elaborate that the nationalist narratives are gaining political traction, such as America First campaign or China Dream campaign. This is cultural nationalism. The fifth one is decline of multilateralism. Here you can talk about the WTO appellate crisis or stalled efforts of United Nations reforms or rise of minilaterals such as I2U2, Quad and AUKUS. Okay, this is also a reason. The decline of multilateralism has also resulted in sovereign nationalism. Alright, now coming to the conclusion, I told you I'll speak one paragraph about India and one I'll conclude. So I'll say that though India has also promoted Atmanirbhar Bharat and programs like production linked incentives to boost employment to the youth. India has also promoted globalization. India has also promoted globalization in the form of Vaccine Maitri, and inclusion of African Union in G20, which signals the efforts to rebalance which signals the efforts to rebalance multilateralism. Efforts to rebalance multilateralism. Finally, I will conclude by telling the challenge. So conclusion I'm talking about. The challenge for every nation is to balance national interest, with globalization, such that globalization 2.0 should be rooted in inclusivity, equity and fairness. Inclusivity, equity and fairness. So this is how I would like to conclude the answer. Now if you see, I have not only used the keywords, I have used all the different examples that I would have studied in the current affairs in this answer. That is how you should be smart enough to take all the current affairs news that you have read. It can be carbon border adjustment mechanism. It can be China's Great Firewall. It can be America First campaign. So all these things are something that you would have read in the current affairs. So take all those things and you should be able to integrate it. How will you be able to integrate is if you can structure the answer using keywords. Otherwise what happens, you will get confused how to use those examples. Those examples can substantiate your keywords. That is why keywords approach in international relations becomes very, very important. So I hope you understood the integration of keywords approach and examples that you take from current affairs. So this completes this question, guys. Let us move on to the next one. Alright guys, now let us look at the 19th question. Let me first read out the question. The question is very big, so listen to it carefully. Energy security constitutes the dominant kingpin of India's foreign policy and is linked with India's overarching influence in Middle Eastern countries. Okay, how would you integrate energy security with India's foreign policy trajectories in the coming years? Okay, so let us first create a schematic. Look at this. I'll create the schematic, and in the schematic I'll first give the introduction. In the introduction I'll talk about two things. One, I have to talk about energy security constitutes dominant kingpin of India's foreign policy. That means what? I have to give the historical angle in just one line, historical angle of how energy security has always been a dominant part of India's foreign policy. So in 2 lines I'll give that. The next is I should talk about Middle East. So in the second paragraph I will talk about the importance of energy security and the role of Middle East or West Asia. Okay, so these are the 2 paragraphs that I'll talk about in the introduction. Then coming to the body, I'll talk about how will I integrate the energy security with India's foreign policy in the coming years. Of course, okay. So here I'm going to talk about how do we integrate energy security with India's foreign policy. Okay, so here I'll be able to generate around 10 different dimensions using the keywords. Okay, you will understand those keywords then, and then in the conclusion we can talk about how energy security is not just an economic issue, but it is integral to strategic statecraft. Okay, so this is how we are going to schematically structure the answer. Now let us start with the introduction. Okay, so let us write down introduction. Energy as long shaped international relations, from the oil shocks of 1970s. That is when they started cartelizing. From the oil shocks of 1970s to today's multipolar energy order. Full stop. For India with over 85% of crude oil and 50% of natural gas, imported, energy security is not merely an economic concern, but a strategic pillar of foreign policy. Strategic pillar of foreign policy. Okay, so this is one paragraph. In the second paragraph, I will attach the West Asia. Okay, look at this. The Middle East supplies 2/3 of India's crude oil imports. 2/3 of India's crude oil imports, and hence plays a central role in India's energy security. Central role in India's energy security. So this completes the introduction. Now let us jump to the body. So in the body, give the subheading as integrating energy security. Integrating energy security into India's foreign policy. Energy security into India's foreign policy. The first one is energy diversification. Energy diversification. Here you can say diversification should be done within Middle East. In the bracket you can say Qatar, UAE, Iran, Iraq, Saudi, as well as outside Middle East. In bracket you can say Russia and Africa. You can also add South America. Outside Middle East, which will reduce over dependence on any single partner. Okay, so this is about the first point, that is energy diversification. Okay, the second one is oil storage diplomacy. Now you can say India must expand its strategic petroleum reserves to enhance its resilience to supply chain shocks, as well as global price volatility. So the strategic petroleum reserves will ensure resilience to supply chain shocks as well as global price volatility. All right, let us go to the third dimension or the third point. Look at this keyword, connectivity diplomacy. Or another keyword for this is energy corridors. Okay, so elaborate here. Chabahar port provides open access to Central Asian energy markets. Also, the IMEC, in bracket you can say India, Middle East, Europe economic corridor announced in G20 in 2023 adds a strategic alternative to the traditional route around Suez Canal, thus linking energy with infrastructure diplomacy. Okay, so I hope you are getting used to the keywords, you are getting used to the language. That is why write with me. Okay, the next dimension or keyword is the fourth one, I think. Yeah, the fourth dimension is green energy. West Asian nations such as UAE and Saudi Arabia
and Saudi Arabia are diversifying into renewables and green hydrogen, and India is emerging as their natural partner in these sectors. Okay, now the next keyword or the next dimension is maritime security, or if you want another keyword for this, you can also say supply chain security. All right, let us elaborate this. Indian Navy presence in Suez, Hormuz, Bab el Mandeb and Gulf of Aden ensures reliable energy supply to India. Next paragraph you can write recent Red Sea disruptions underscored the need for convoying and cooperative security with the Gulf navies. The next keyword is refinery partnerships. Okay, here you can say the West Asian companies are investing in petroleum refineries in India, as well as storage infrastructure for strategic petroleum reserves in India, which makes the Gulf producers or countries integral part of Indian energy architecture. This is refinery partnerships. The seventh keyword is financial linkages. Okay, here you can say rupee dirham crude settlement will help reduce dependence on dollars. So this is about financial linkages. The eighth one you can say is technological linkages. Okay, you can say setting up digital corridors such as UPI payment system will enhance energy finance synergy. Okay, the last keyword is strategic leverage. Here you can elaborate and say India is viewed by the Gulf nations not just as energy consumer, but as long-term partner in growth, investment, security, infrastructure and innovation. and innovation. Full stop. This leverage must be used by India to enhance energy ties with the Gulf states.
Okay. Alright guys, so this completes the body of the answer. Now in the answer you can observe that I have used the keywords specific to international relations. To be more specific, I have used the keywords specific to energy security. But the only thing that I have done while elaborating those keywords is I have brought the context of Gulf states when I am talking about the keywords of energy security. So if you have written with me, you will realize how exactly to elaborate in such a way that you connect the keyword to the context of the question. That is a skill that you have to learn, and that is why please write with me. Alright, so let us conclude the answer.
So in the conclusion we can say energy for India is not just a economic standalone issue, but is part of strategic statecraft. Okay, full stop. Hence Indian foreign policy must integrate with connectivity. In bracket you can say IMEC, co-investment, in bracket you can say SPRs, strategic petroleum reserves, and transition partnerships, in bracket you can say green hydrogen and renewables.
So now this is how I would like to conclude. So I hope you understood how to play around with the keywords but write any answer given in international relations. So this completes the 19th question of international relations. Let us go to the last question of international relations and learn how to apply the keywords there to write an answer. Alright guys, now let us look at the last question, that is the 20th question. Let me first read out the question. The 20th question is: the reform process in the United Nations remains unresolved because of the delicate imbalance of East and West and entanglement of the USA versus Russo-Chinese alliance. Okay, examine and critically evaluate the East-West policy confrontations in this regard. Okay, now look at this. They are asking, due to the East-West confrontation, UN reforms have been stalled. They are asking, United Nations reforms have been stalled. Okay, why? Because of East-West confrontations. Correct. So United Nations reform process has been stalled due to East-West confrontation. So one, you have to obviously justify this, and you also have to critically evaluate this. Okay, what is critical evaluation of this? You have to critically evaluate that it is not only East-West confrontations, there are other problems also. Okay, that we will discuss while I am talking about the flow and while we start writing the answers together. But what you should understand here is, look at this, nowhere are they asking directly UNSC reforms. Though they implicitly mean UNSC reforms only, in the question they are asking you United Nations reform process. So two things you can do. You can add more processes that needs to be reformed within the institution called United Nations. This also you can do. If you have a lot of points about reforms that can be done in different parts of United Nations and its associated organization, then definitely you can write like that also. Or if I want to specifically talk about United Nations security reforms, then what I will do is, this is very important. Since they have not asked specifically about United Nations security reforms, but you are going to write specifically about United Nations Security Council reforms, what you will talk is, in the introduction, first I will talk about United Nations, the purpose of existence of United Nations, and then I will talk about the necessity to reform the Security Council, which is very, very critical in today's multipolar world, and hence this is the most important reform that has been stalled for many decades. So I am creating a narrative there that it is the UNSC reforms that is need of the hour, and then I am going to evaluate how the UNSC reforms have been stalled due to the East-West confrontation, and again I am going to critically evaluate. That and all is okay, but what I am trying to tell is, since they have not mentioned UNSC reforms explicitly, since it is implicit in the question, you have to make it explicit. That is what I'm trying to tell. You have to tell explicitly in the introduction, in the first paragraph or second paragraph, that it is the UNSC reforms that has been stalled, and it is the most critical aspect that we have to change in order to balance the power structure in the multipolar world. Hence, this is the need of the hour. And then you should tell how this has been stalled because of so, so and so. I hope you understood this. So whenever you are taking that question, if the question is not asking anything explicitly, I hope you understood the skill. The skill is you tell it explicitly and then start justification. Don't think that the examiner may have asked like this and start writing. Don't assume things. Be very explicit. I hope you understood this lesson and skill. Okay, all these skills are something that you should be making a note of in the notebook, because these skills are used widely across all the GS papers, not only in international relations. Okay, so now let us create the schema. Okay, let us create a schema very quickly. So the schema is, one, in the introduction, as I told you, I will talk about what is United Nations and what is its purpose, and when it was created, what was the power structure. I'm going to talk about how the power structure then decided the United Nations Security Council. But today, the power structure has changed to a multipolar world. And because it has changed to a multipolar world, we are in dire need of UNSC reforms. This is where I'll make it explicit. Okay. Then the second part is we are going to the body. In the body, I'm going to talk about two parts. One is the East-West confrontation and how this East-West confrontation has stalled UNSC reforms. Okay. The second I'm going to talk about is I'm going to critically evaluate. And obviously in the conclusion, I'm going to give a type of forward-looking, practical solution for UNSC reforms. So this is our schematic. This is how our flow of the answer will be structured. All right, the schema is done. Let us jump to writing the answer. So I hope you are ready. Let's get started. Let's write. Let's start with the introduction. In the introduction, you can start. United Nations was founded in 1948 and was designed to reflect the post-World War II power structures. However, today's multipolar world with emerging economies and new security challenges makes United Nations reforms urgent, especially the reforms of United Nations Security Council. Look at this. This is how I'm making it more explicit. All right, let us go to the body. Now give the subheading as East-West confrontation and its influence on UN reform. The first point you can say is Security Council expansion deadlock. Okay, so here you can say the G4, that is India, Germany, Japan and Brazil have pushed for permanent membership. However, the West supports Japan and sometimes India, but China opposes Japan and India to be part of permanent members of UNSC. Okay, so this is the first point. Here, just by telling G4 is looking for permanent membership and stopping there will not work.
You have to link the context. The context is what? East-West confrontation. Here, the East is telling something, the West is telling something. The West wants Japan to be a member, the East does not want Japan and India to be a member. So look at that. That confrontation has created the deadlock, expansion deadlock. Okay, so this is the first point. Let us move to the next one. The second one is veto power politics. Veto power politics. What does this mean? Look at this. The P5 means permanent 5. See the veto power as central to their dominance, and use this veto power to further their interests. For instance, the USA and its allies used veto power to overlook humanitarian crisis in Ukraine and Palestine, whereas Russia and China use veto power to shield their allies such as Syria and Myanmar. All right, the next one, the third one is ideological contest. Here you can say West emphasizes on democracy, human rights, and responsibility to protect. Whereas the East emphasizes sovereignty, non-interference, and multipolarity. This clash makes consensus on reform process elusive. Okay, so this completes the third one. Let us move to the fourth point. Write down renewed polarization. Okay, write down here. The US led West accuses Russia to have misused veto on Ukraine, but Russia China argue that West uses the UN platform. The West uses the UN platform to selectively target Russia-China alliance and their allies. Okay, this worsens mistrust and makes reforms even harder. Okay, now look at this. I have tried to provide the East-West confrontation and how that East-West confrontation has created a deadlock in United Nations reform process. Okay, so this is one part. Now give the subheading as critical evaluation and then start writing. So give the subheading as critical evaluation. Start off. Though East-West entanglement plays a critical role in the stagnancy of UN reforms. Other factors also play an important role, such as structural reasons and political reasons. Structural reasons and political reasons. Let us now elaborate this. So now you can say the first one in critical evaluation is institutional deadlock. This is a structural problem. Look at this, institutional deadlock. Elaborate here. Any UN Charter amendment requires two-third majority in the General Assembly and ratification by all P5. Okay, full stop, continue. This double lock virtually ensures that no reform passes without unanimity among the permanent members who are least interested to dilute their privileges. Okay, so look at this. This is a structural problem, institutional deadlock. The second one, I'll give you the political reason. See, the second one is coalition politics. Okay, elaborate here. The G4 demands new permanent members in UNSC, whereas a group named Uniting for Consensus opposes permanency and proposes long-term re-electable seats. Look at this. This is the politics happening. All right. So now we have spoken about how East-West confrontation has stalled UN reforms. We have also spoken about structural issue and political reasons why the UN reforms is not happening. Now, in the next part, let us try to give some workarounds. Okay. So, sorry, we are still not ending it. Let us continue this answer. So, let us give the workarounds. Okay, let us give the workarounds. Here, let us try to give 1 or 2 points. Because we are writing 15 markers, you have to create extra dimensions. Okay, so in the workarounds, the first one you can say is Liechtenstein's resolution 2022 mandates General Assembly debate after any veto which enhances transparency in the working of United Nations Security Council. Okay, so this is one workaround. The second one is incremental reforms. Incremental reforms is the most plausible way rather than long-term reforms. For example, expanding the UN Security Council to include permanent members without veto power to improve regional representation. Okay, so this is one workaround that I am suggesting. It may be good, it may not do any good, but such incremental improvements can help actually bring overall reforms in the long term. So these are the two workarounds I would like to suggest. Alright, so now let us conclude the answer. In the conclusion, we should leave it in a positive note where we can say the global south should come together and keep striving for the UN reform, though it is seeming like it is out of reach. Okay, so let us start the conclusion. So write the conclusion. So in the conclusion, you can say for India and the global south, the task is to make sustained efforts to make United Nations, especially UNSC, more representative and democratic, even if immediate transformation may seem out of reach. So this is how, in a forward-looking manner, you have tried to give the conclusion. This completes the 4 questions that is asked in international relations. I again applaud all my students for showing the diligence and commitment and writing the model answers along with me, and I can understand the amount of confidence now you will have in writing international relations. Alright, so if I have to end this video or this session, you people have written the answers, so you will realize the importance of the keyword approach. Anyways, to just summarize all the skills that we have learned in this section of international relations is: 1, you learned that international relations is dynamic. So because it is dynamic, how do we track the issues? We will track the issues on the basis of themes. I have already given you the themes, so you will keep tracking the issues that will go around on these themes, and the questions will always be revolving around these themes. If you have prepared answers on that, you can write beautiful answers. The second thing from this videos that you have to take away is the use of keyword approach. Okay, by now you would have gotten very much used to keyword approach. There are few sections in the mains exam where keywords approach plays a very important role. I have told time and again in the beginning also. So in international relations, we have used keywords, and you have understood how by using the keywords, it creates the language of international relations. I have also taught you how to collect these keywords. Okay, I have told you that collecting keywords should come by writing a lot of tests. After you write the test, you will go to the synopsis. You will compare your answer with the synopsis. If there is any new keyword in the synopsis, you will add it to your notes. That is how, when you are writing a lot of tests, you will keep collecting the keywords. So when you are collecting the keywords, try to segregate those keywords on the basis of these themes itself. So on the theme wise, at the end, you would have collected the notes as well as you would have collected a lot of keywords. Okay, you wouldn't have collected the notes, you would have made the notes on every theme. And when you're writing the test and when you're collecting the keywords, just segregate the keywords on the basis of these themes. So at the end, automatically all the keywords would have got segregated on the basis of themes. Okay, so this is how you have to prepare for international relations. Though international relations seem to be dynamic, it is actually very easy if you know how to apply the keyword approach, and I hope today you have mastered and realized the importance of keyword approach. Finally, I hope that this was helpful, and you should realize that this is an initiative that is done for the first time in the country, and I hope my student community across India will make best use of this. One last request is, please like, subscribe, and more importantly, please share this video with all your friends in all the groups and communities you are in. We are putting a lot of effort, and we at least deserve that amount of effort from your side to share this video with your friends and communities, because that incentivizes us to work harder. So finally guys, make sure that you make good use of Decode Mains 2025. Never before has such an initiative been done openly. So I hope that you will write all the model answers, and I hope that you will get all the skills that are required to score very well in the upcoming Mains 2026. I'll see you again guys. Thank you so much for all the love and support. Bye.